Okay. Well, hello there, and welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to Lotro plugins. Last time on Plugging Along, we revisited the MinstrelBuffs plugin to fix some remaining localization issues and released a patch. And this time, I want to try out a new coding tool and use it to fix the MinstrelBuff plugin in a few ways under the cover, and one very noticeable way that's been bothering me for festivals. So, as always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. And in the meantime, let me go ahead and move some stuff around. The redhead says, "Hello, you tall hobbit." I don't know what you're talking about. This hobbit is exactly hobbit-shaped. And as you can see, we're standing here outside the festival garden in Duillond because that's where I've noticed a specific problem with the MinstrelBuff plugin. So, first of all, let's go ahead and load up the plugin manager and load up the MinstrelBuff plugin. Excellent. We're going to go ahead and use Control / to reposition the MinstrelBuff plugin to where I normally have it. And we'll also go ahead and, in the options, say that I only want to see this during combat. For one thing, when that pops up, that's a very nice visual reminder to me that I am in combat and I should do something about that. So let's run on over here to the Festival Garden Cave. It looks kind of ominous, but it's very nice. Now, the next game of Shrew Stomping is not going to come up for a minute, and that'll give us plenty of time to look at some other stuff. If you don't know, the Shrew Stomping game is something that happens every 9 minutes in the Festival Garden in Duillond here in Arid Luin. Let's see. There we go. Right here in the outskirts of Duillond. So every 9 minutes, you'll see an announcement in chat saying the game will start soon. 3 minutes after that, and that's when the quests become available. 3 minutes after that, the game begins. 3 minutes after that, game ends. 3 minutes after that, another announcement. So just like clockwork. So if you see in chat, a game of Shrew Stomp is about to begin, as we last saw about 8 minutes ago, we know we have about 1 minute to remain. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and create a new tab that won't be underneath my face. Oh, hey, hello, Hobbit Gifts. Excellent. It's actually kind of sad. I keep accumulating virtue experience potions, but since we're on Treebeard, I have nowhere to spend them since all these are maxed out. So I just keep tossing them into my shared storage. Oh, sorry, my personal storage. And there we go. Great. All right. Problem solved. We can see a game is about to begin. Great. In fact, what's going on here? We want that to be standard. We want that to be error. And we'll leave event broadcast in there as well. So, if you're doing a Shrew Stomping challenge, there's an easy, medium, and difficult version of the quest. We'll go ahead and do difficult here. It will be showing us what's going on. All right. And there's also an optional quest for the giant shrew. Okay. So, as I said, we now have 3 minutes in which to do other things. We're a little less than 3 minutes. So, let's go ahead and pull up some stuff. So, traditionally, on Plugging Along, we've been using a normal text editor to do our editing because it's available to anyone. You can do it basically from anywhere. But a member of the plugin community, Lunar Water, has been making an exceptional extension to Visual Studio Code. And I wanted to give that a try today. So, if you're not familiar with it, Visual Studio Code is a free tool available from Microsoft that lets you program in languages like C#, but also other languages as well. And it gives you a nice visual environment to work in. So you can download a free version of that, install it. I've already done that part, but if you need a link, I will toss one into the Twitch chat there. And let me pull up a link to the Lotro API extension. And this lets Visual Studio Code know about Lotro-specific Lua stuff. We can see a nice little animated GIF or GIF here. And you can see that the IntelliSense is prompting Lotro-specific auto-completions here, including general things you might use, for instance, if you're making a new button. Oh, I'm not actually showing that, am I? Haha. Okay. So, it occurs to me, I had failed to show this when I was saying, this is Visual Studio Code. Great. So, let me pause for a moment. When the shrew stomping game begins, you can hear an audible click when that happens. You can also hear people starting to stomp shrews. So it's very noticeable if you're near your computer and your sound is on. If your sound is not on, you're kind of on your own. Good luck. Okay. So the first thing I like to do when I'm doing shrew stomping is just clear out the 5 mounds of soil first. So that way I'm just in shrew stomping mode the whole time when I actually get to that point. So each one of them takes a long time to plant and seems to give the shrews rabies when they gnaw on it. So that's weird. I'm not sure what the elves are doing here. But from then on, whenever you select a shrew, if you have the option set, you can see where the shrew is targeting. Aha, great. So you can see where the shrew is targeting, that purple circle showing where it is, and more importantly, where it is going to go next. You can also use the follow command to just run on up to that shrew. And of course, there's a lot of competition here in the garden, as I have got several kinmates stealing my shrews. That's okay, I do it all the time to them when I am not streaming. So that's something I'll do a lot in the gardens, is if I'm feeling at all like feeling a little lazy about it, I will just select a shrew, follow, and boot. Select a shrew, follow, and boot. It doesn't have to be any harder than that. So if you're not familiar with the shrew stomping event, that's all there is to it. So follow, boot. Now you do have a cooldown of about 2 seconds, so you can use that to kind of maybe get some distance to a further away shrew. And once you've stomped 10 of them, you can't stomp anymore. And so if you're struggling to get shrews because there's so many people in the garden, like right now, Angelic is challenging me for all these shrews, that's okay. When they hit their 10th shrew, they will no longer be able to boot the shrews at all. And so as long as you can get in there in that first 3 minutes for the timed quest, it's fine. There's a lot of shrews to go around, and as soon as all of them are gone, a new wave will emerge. Okay, so a problem that happens, in fact, let's see. A problem that will often happen in the shrew garden is when the shrews are rabid, they might come and gnaw on you. They might come attack you. And that puts you into combat, which makes this MinstrelBuff UI pop up. And I find that quite distracting when I'm trying to get the shrews, trying to wait and see where the large shrew is. I don't want that in my screen. And so that's the thing I want to address right now is, can we, probably keying off of this serious business effect, can we go ahead and tell the MinstrelBuff UI, no, if we have serious business, we by definition can't be in a situation where I need the MinstrelBuff UI. So that's my goal. Serious business, no MinstrelBuff. And cool. So that's the basic setup. Also, it's entirely possible I forgot to talk to Tom, and if I'm going to be getting any credit for this at all, let me go ahead and do that. So, if you have any sort of return debris, it's very easy to get over to Tom in the festival area of Breland. Excuse me. So there's, of course, a free horse over by the west gate of Bree. Let's pop on over to the Breeland Festival grounds, not to be confused with the Festival Garden, or the Festival Inn, or Ale Hall, or whatever that is over in Thorns Hall. Great. Tom's just standing here in the middle of this area. We're going to get that wrapper. I'm already 2 quests short of where I would have been if I'd remembered to get that. Oh well. What is this? Heart of a Hobbit? I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to festivals. Alright, and we're just going to go ahead and milestone back to Duillond. Sit and wait so we can test this again. Actually, hang on a second. The Shrew Stomping area is a great place to just do quests if you're doing something else. I often do it while I'm doing homework. But there is a serious business zone surrounding the stage here at the Breeland Festival grounds. We can see Affodil currently does not have any serious business, but if I step over the line, Affodil does have serious business. So, let's see. Where's the line? Serious business on, serious business off. Serious business on, serious business off. So it definitely seems to be near the milestone where the border is. I suspect that prevents people from annoying anyone who's trying to be on stage and doing something neat there. This is a variation on the serious business. I realized because of this, it's actually 2 subtly different serious businesses. There's the one that disables festival consumables. That's the one that affects you around this stage here. Then there's the one that disables all emotes, and that's what you'll get in the in Festival Inn area in Thorns Hall and the Festival Garden, that kind of thing. So you can still emote over here. In fact, I'll do it right now. But you can't use your festival emotes until you get back out far enough away from that stage, and now we can. Great. So this is a really great place to test a plugin that's going to detect whether or not we have serious business enabled. And that lets us basically have a debug button that says on, off, except it's just us running back and forth next to this milestone. Perfect. Okay. So, I recently installed Visual Studio Code. I haven't used it very much. I'm familiar with Visual Studio, and so I'm hoping that's going to suit me pretty well here. It's going to load up here in the background. And possibly lag me out while it's doing it. Hello, Weir Willow. He said, that's the one I happened to pick when browsing text editors. If you mean Visual Studio Code, awesome. It's got a lot of capability. You like the non-depressing light themes. Well, I'm a dark theme kind of person recently, so I haven't even played around with their theme since it defaulted to this one. All right, and the other thing I want to do is pull up the source control utility I use. It's called Fork. It's a UI that wraps around a Git repository. Maybe I should have done this before I started streaming. Okay. No, don't need to be maximized. All right. So, oh, that's funny. Looks like I'm still on branch. Oh well. I'm not practicing very good branch practices right now since I'm the only one doing stuff here. But we'll fix that later. Okay, so right now we can see in our MinstrelBuff UI, we have a couple of changes. We have show debug options true. That's fine. That's a good development mode thing. And we have some to-do items that notes I was making that I would like to go and address when we have the time. So, no real changes to worry about right now. We're working with a blank slate. And here we are in Visual Studio Code. I wonder if there's a way to stop seeing this. There we go. No need to show that welcome page. Okay. Fun. That's a cute little helper. So what I often do with Sublime Text is I'll start by opening up our to-do file. Here it is here. And Visual Studio Code integrates with source control repositories. So it's telling me right here, it knows that to-do and option window have been modified. They haven't been committed to source control yet. That's great. That's a great reminder to me that, hey, as these changes accumulate, those ticks are going to build up, and I can get rid of them by actually committing my changes in small, discrete chunks. That seems like a really nice affordance right there. I'm going to shrink that down a little bit, though, because it's taking a lot of space. Okay, so we have our to-do file. Awesome. So the first one is react to serious business by hiding the UI. That's what I would like to see happen. So the first thing that MinstrelBuff has is MinstrelEffects.lua. And this is where it stores all the various effects it cares about in all of the different languages it cares about. And so this seems like a place that we could go ahead and store our stuff. But one of the things that I'm not super thrilled with MinstrelBuffs, if I could wave a wand, change everything to the way it works in my head, I don't like that they've split out the English, the French, and the German into these separate, distinct structures. I would much rather see valid ballad effects equals, and then the en for English equals its own table, and then underneath that German, underneath that French, or something, right? Or probably the other way around. Ballad damage, and under that is the English, the French, the German, something like that. I think, but splitting them out into these own structures, I feel that's more fragile, and you have to have a bunch of logic to take into account, oh, which language are we working on? So we have to point at different actual tables instead of just addressing a different place in the table. So I feel like if I'm adding a new feature, I don't have to follow through with how they're doing it here. That's why in the strings.lua, which is something new I introduced, I didn't follow that technique. I said, okay, everything's going to exist within a table, and then you'll just have English and German and French entries within that. Awesome. So we have a client language. We have English, German, French. So we also have a getString function. So do I want to put it in Minstrel Effects, or do I want to put it in strings? Maybe I want to put it into strings, which is sort of that new style of doing this, and leave Minstrel Effects alone right now. Because serious business is not a Minstrel Effect. It's like the opposite of a Minstrel Effect. It's an unminstrel effect. So we'll go ahead and put it in here, maybe. Let's give it a try. So let's go ahead and make an effects place here. And in effects, we can go ahead and have a serious business. And under here, we can start off with an English version, which, well, let me just double check the spelling. Oh, Hobnonigans. Hobnonigans is where I usually see that. And it's got the full suppression, no emotes at all, except for drumming. So serious business. There we go. So we have the English version of that. For this to work in French and German, we will need it spelled correctly for those languages. But we'll start with English and make sure we get the logic working first. Okay, so back over the line. Excellent. Okay, so we have a serious business. We have English. We're ready to go. Now, if I were to think about what I want to incorporate, let's see, we have ballad, anthem, coda, cry, major ballad. Why do you have that separated out? Oh, it's effect and skill name. Okay, so I think each of those could exist under effects, ballads, ballad effects, ballad names. I think they could each have sections here, and it would work out okay in my mind's eye. Okay, so this is set up so that we can use the get string function passing in effects serious business, and we'll get the correct version out here. So that's very handy. Okay, now that we have something to check against, sorry, just looking at a note I made to myself earlier. Okay, let's go ahead and open up our main file, which Visual Studio Code would like me to know there's one potential problem with. All right, I'm curious. What do you got? Oh, it doesn't recognize that yet. So one of the natures of this being a relatively new, even though it's very awesome, plugin, sorry, I should say extension for Visual Studio Code, is that not everything in the Lotro ecosystem is fully recognized yet, is an optional function that Turbine provided, and so it does exist, and so I can safely ignore this in my mind's eye. Okay, so right now we have a function called refresh effect display. And in this function, we are looking at all of the effects and processing them anyway. So this is the place where we could also pay attention to serious business. So right now, we are sorting all of the effects by time and then going through and dealing with any ballads and anthems and that kind of thing. Oh, thanks, Moobot and Little Red Hood. Yes, plugins. So the first thing we do is we're looking at each of the effects and putting them into we're copying them over. So if we want to avoid as much work as possible, instead of doing anything where we look at all of the effects after we've copied them off and sorted them, maybe we do something up here where we're first copying the effects list into our own table that we can sort by time. Okay. So let's see, what do we have? We should probably have some sort of is serious business variable, right? Local is serious business. We'll start assuming it is not serious business. And in this, we only want to bother checking if we're still not is serious business. As soon as it is serious business, we can stop checking for more serious business. We're only ever going to get one. And I don't know. This effect is serious business. Then we can set is serious business equals true, end. It's this part that's the tricky part, right? Like, how do we, what are we looking at here? Well, I'm hoping that we'll get some sort of a contextual analysis here. So let's take a look. So local serious business effect. Oh, I don't like the idea of looking that up every single time. Refresh effect display gets called every time an effect adds or removes or what. So I want to do as little processing in here as I can. But we're in main here. Do we have a constructor? We do. Excellent. So self dot serious business effect equals get string, and we're going to go ahead and do lang dot, and here's where I don't remember what it looks like. So lang dot, okay, effects dot serious business, and here I'm taking advantage of the fact that if your key names obey certain constraints, you don't need to use the brackets and the quotes and all that. All right, so we're going to get that string for lang effects serious business. And we're going to save it off. I don't want to keep looking at that over and over and over. But now that we have that, let's see, sorted, oops, I. Oh, hey. Oh, that's so cool, Lunar Water, yes. So we can see that sorted effects I, it is contextually telling me what is possible here. Now, it's not telling me what a sorted effects is, just that we're getting an effect out of the get function here. That's okay. Thanks to us cleverly naming this as an effect, we know it's probably an effect. So if I want the get name, we can see it's probably here. If I'm not sure what I'm looking for, I can go ahead and type name, and we can see, there's a callback, and then there's also get name. Lovely. So if that equals serious business effect, okay, so if we're not currently in serious business, then we'll still check. And if the effect is serious business, oh, hey. Oh, thank you for calling that out. Oh, my goodness. That is so good. That should be self.serious business effect. Of course. So we can go ahead and remove that placeholder comment. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Stop looking once we've found it, but we find it by checking if the name is the same as the effect. Then we can set is serious business to true. Awesome. And then what? Somewhere we can go ahead and make use of that. Why is there a ... here? Is that previous line just too long? All right, UI, I'm confused. Yeah, weird. Okay, so let's go ahead. We want to keep that table sort with this loop. That's what's going on here. But right after that, let's go ahead and say if is serious business. If we detected that, then we're going to do something about it, right? So if we're in serious business, then update the window, right? Update the buff window. That's pretty much it, right? So it should probably look something like buff window set serious business something. Actually, what happens if this changes? Okay, so we probably need something more like if buff window, get serious business isn't the same as what we just did, is serious business. Right, so if the buff window thinks we are in serious business and we just detected that we're not, we should update it, vice versa. But if we think we're in serious business and the window thinks we're in serious business, then we're in serious business. We're good. But that's not how we refer to buff window. is serious. In fact, maybe buff window itself just knows how to deal with a different is serious business. Maybe we design it better. So buff window. Actually, what do we do? Is it a self.buff window? It might be self.buff window. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Set serious business is serious business. Okay. None of this if else. We're always going to do that. In fact, at this point, that comment's pretty redundant, right? Now, as the IntelliSense is telling us, we don't have a set serious business function yet. So let's, I'm curious what happens. What do you got for me? No, I don't want to disable diagnostics. I want you to just make the thing. That's okay. So let's go ahead and open up buff window and come make a new function. This can kind of go anywhere. I'm just going to put it at the end of the file for it now. Function, we're making a new buff window function. And it's going to be whatever we said it was going to be. So that's serious business. Sounds good. Is serious business. Awesome. Okay, so at the very least, the IntelliSense should detect that set serious business exists. We're all good. Lovely. Okay. So what do we have? The buff window itself probably needs to have a sense of whether or not it is in serious business, because it's going to need to key its visibility off of that somehow. So probably the easiest way is to come up here into the constructor and say self is serious business equals, and we're going to assume no, we're not in serious business. Okay. So now we have a function set serious business. And if is serious business does not equal self dot, what did I call it? Is serious business. You know what? I'm really loving this contextual identification of things that you've done in this file or on this object. That's just delightful. So if is serious business does not equal self, that's when we know we need to do something. Not sure what it is yet. Probably self.is serious business equals the local is serious business, the parameter. And then update the UI. Not sure what that looks like. Okay. Well, what do we have? What do we have? Let's do a search for, I don't know, visibility. Okay, we have set visibility. Okay. What else do we have? Lots of set visibility. What does set visibility do? Set visibility looks like well, it looks like it's going to be based on get window visible. Okay. Well, our get window visible probably wants to also pay attention to, oops, is serious business. Okay, so that's a starting point. Now this is a get window visible. Was there also a set window visible? There's a set visibility. Okay, but set visibility is using that get window visible result. Okay, so this return line is really wide, right? Like really wide. So a thing that I'm going to do for my own ability to read what's going on is I'm going to space it out vertically instead of horizontally. So we have return not self-hidden and one of get effect window visible in combat, or is in combat, or there's something else visible, right? Okay. So if we want to pay attention to is serious business, if is serious business is on, then we are not visible, right? So we can just add that here at the beginning. Not self is serious business. And so as long as we're not serious business, we can go on to consider other reasons why we might be visible. Okay. So what calls get window visible? Well, in Visual Studio Code, you can right click and go to references or Shift F12. And we can see it's referred to by the function definition itself. Yeah. And here. So we want to go ahead and make set visibility. We want to set off that chain of events. So I think that's what we're doing. Self set visibility, call it good. So at this point, we've calculated yes or no in main. Are we in serious business? We're passing on the result of that yes or no to the buff window. In the buff window, we'll go ahead and update if it's different and then update the UI. Is that enough? No, let's start trying some stuff out. Whoops. So we're going to come on in here to Plugin Manager. We're going to unload, and we're going to reload that. And the first thing we're going to look for is, were there any compiled syntax errors? And thanks to Visual Studio Code catching one or two things, I think the answer is no. So the next thing is, how do we get the MinstrelBuff up on the screen? Well, if you're in Resonance Stance, you can use Major Ballad to go ahead and trigger it. Oh, hey, but we're in serious business. You can't see that. Now we're not in serious business. Oh, that's delightful. Okay, not in serious business. Serious business. Not in serious business. Now I like this. It's keeping track of where you are. So it's just hiding the UI, but if you're running through serious business, okay. Yeah, that's definitely functionality. Now, this is extra processing. This is extra processing that's happening every time we're going through the refresh effects display, which happens every time your effects list changes. And so ideally, we would do as little as possible in here. And so my concern is that if you're not a festival person, I've just, every one of these effects, we're checking it for serious business every time an effect changes. And so I think it makes sense if we added an option here that says, enable this mode so that we can just skip past it with a simple Boolean check if we're not doing that. And so I would want to check the, don't do this if option is off, but also this one here, right? don't do this if option is off. And within the buff window itself, it's just a Boolean check, which will always default to false, or I should say, the serious business will always be false, so it will never affect the visibility of. Yeah, that makes sense. So, what's going? What would that look like? Well, let's go ahead and pause here. This seems to be a working feature, so we want to go ahead and commit it before we go too much further. So let me go ahead and take a look here. We can see over on the side here, modified, 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 all sorts of stuff modified with that M. So we want to go ahead and pull up our source control and take a look at what's going on here. I'm going to go ahead and commit these to do notes. Actually, now that I think about it, there's another to do note. Make serious business feature optional. Okay, so I think that's safe to say that we are reacting to serious business by hiding the UI. That was a pretty straightforward fix. What are the changes that went into that? In main, we capture the serious business effect, so we only have to look at it once. And every time we look at the effects, we check, is serious business involved? That all seems legitimate. In strings, we're adding the serious business effect. In minstrel effects, we apparently just added a new line. We don't need that. And in buff window, this is where the magic happens. We have a local version of is serious business. When we're called, we check to see if it's different. And if it is, we save it off and we update set to visibility, which is going to call get window visible, which now pays attention to is serious business. But there's two changes going on at once here. Let me go ahead and back up a moment. For buff window, let's see, set visibility, and nope, get window visible. I'm using F12 to navigate to the thing under my cursor. Let's go ahead and pull out that change here. Instead of return, not self-hidden, and not self-hidden, blah, 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 all of that one line, now I'm just going to commit this as its own commit to say we're splitting that out into vertical white space. In fact, I want to undo these other stages here. So, let me save off that commit message a second. I like that commit message. Split really long line with into multiple lines. Yeah. So that's just a self-contained change right there. But then we can come on back in and we don't need the comment anymore. But now we can see when we look at buff window, this is the important change. That was getting masked by the larger readability change that we had made. But this is the real change that's going on here. We're adding in the check for serious business. And by making those two separate commits, snapshots if you will, it really clarifies what the actual changes we're trying to do. Is a favor you can do to a future you is if you can break out basic refactoring, didn't change what it was supposed to be doing, just changed how it looked, from actual meaningful changes, it'll make it a lot easier to figure out what's what later on. And this is all gifts to future you. All right, so we can see self is serious, not as serious, set serious business. This is all serious related now. There's nothing, none of that refactoring stuff. That's great. All right. In main, serious, 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 perfect. And in strings, serious. So we know we're doing serious business here. My goal is to say the word serious about 1,000 times this stream, so let me know how I'm doing. All right, so we're going to take a snapshot of all these changes for serious business, react to serious business by hiding the UI. Lovely. Okay. And then that was a little bit of changing. It wouldn't be a bad idea to go ahead and reload. We can confirm that things still work. Okay. Great. So things are still working as far as detecting serious business, but now I want to go ahead and not force that on everyone. Like, obviously it's good for me, but not everyone does festivals. And even if you do festivals fanatically, it's not festival time all the time yet. They haven't introduced enough. Yeah, Lunar Water in chat recommends don't be the person to reformat an entire file in the same commit as a feature change. Absolutely. If you're going to be converting all your tabs to spaces or vice versa, and I have opinions on that, do that in one commit and make meaningful changes in a different commit. It'll just make life much smoother later on. Okay. Come on, large shrew. Oh well. Okay. So what do we have here? No error messages here. The functionality worked awesome. Linwater, welcome to chat. I hope you've been following along. I've been really enjoying using this extension of yours. It's lovely. It already saved me at one point because I didn't use self dot, and your extension was like, no, that's not a valid thing. Or perhaps the Lua parser that your extension was pulling in automatically. Either way, lovely. Okay. So, MinstrelBuffs has an option window. And I'm going to pull up the options window right here. Oh, bye-bye water. Hello, more water. Okay, so when in doubt, if you're having trouble figuring out where the options are coming from, you can always look at these strings. But in the meantime, the option window here, that seems like a plausible place. So let me pull over the options window so we can see a little bit more easily, side by side. So we can see we have place controls, combat visibility, theme options, soliloquy visibility, that's down here at the bottom. When in doubt, just add the next thing after the previous thing. So, checking for serious business. Cool. So, I'm really excited to use another feature of this Lotro Api Extension, which is the automatic creation of sort of template code for object creation. So if I do self dot, excuse me, I got technical. If I do self dot, and we don't need serious business check box equals turbine dot, and I know it's a UI. Is it a normal checkbox or is it a Lotro checkbox? Let's find out. Oh, interesting. Well, here's where I'm going to pop over to the API documentation because I don't remember if there's a reason to pick one or the other. So I see a checkbox under UI, and then turbine UI Lotro checkbox. That's going to be the skinned version. But it doesn't seem like there's anything different other than the skinning thing. All right, so UI.Lotro makes a lot of sense. Lotro.checkbox. And so if I reference the type, I assume it doesn't do that. If I reference the constructor, no? Oh, how do I get that? How do I get the auto completion? Brand new, I haven't done this, but what I want to do is highlighted in this right here, this GIF here. Let's see. I think it's this one. Add a button. Button. Oh, okay. So maybe it's keyed off of using the actual name. Okay. Check box. I feel like this is one of those things that would make more sense if I was regularly a Visual Studio Code person. Well, Linnerwater, if you're in Twitch chat and you don't mind popping in, how do I make the templated code for a button or whatever pop up? Is there a keyboard shortcut for that? Or maybe you've already documented it and I haven't read the documents? This is entirely possible. Highlight variable, trigger snapshot, and comment palettes. I knew it was going to be one of those things I just didn't know. Okay. So, highlight variable, Control-Shift-P. Snippet in command palettes. No. That can't be what I'm... Okay. Well, I've failed to implement your process here. On next line, highlight the variable trigger snippet. But I want more to show up. I'm going to look at this animated GIF and see if I get inspiration from it. Right, button. Okay, so when you were saying button in that example, well, you know what? Let's just say button. Okay, so with button, the very first thing is button definition. Okay, what about checkbox? Oh, maybe that's just not one of the ones that is supported yet. I think this is a manual process. Okay, I delved too greedily, I think. Okay, so if you type one of the types that has that supported, you'll see a button definition here. Oh no, okay, Control-Shift-P, insert snippet. All right, Control-Shift, insert snippet. Okay. Okay, so button is currently supported from the Lotro API, but not all of the classes, or not all of the UI types. Cool, okay. So, then I will not be able to use that in this case, but in the case of a button, we can see button definition, we can see a lot of the common things that you would set when creating a button. Parent, position width, set text, all that good stuff. Lovely. Okay. In the meantime, serious business checkbox equals turbine.ui.lotro.checkbox. And we can just go ahead and use the section above us as inspiration, or we can just go ahead and copy that off. Now, something that I do like doing is multi-editing with Sublime Text. I'm sure Visual Code supports this, but until I figure out how to do that, I'm going to just copy it into Sublime Text, make the changes, and pull it back out. Serious business checkbox. Great. Now, we can see use of the liquid tracker here is not the one we want. We want to go ahead and have check for serious business. And here we can say the English version, yeah, just that. Check for serious business. Or I should say, not check for, but disable hide UI when serious business is active. Something like that. So in that case, one of the things I'm really enjoying about using Visual Studio Code with the Luna Waters extension is being able to use F12 to say navigate to where this thing is defined. So I can hover over it and see it's Lang options check for serious business. I can also just press F12 and be taken to the place where it is. I think that's going to be very handy for learning new code bases especially. All right, so we have set position, set size, set checked. We're going to need to change that. So let's go ahead and go to where this is no definition found. Well, that's exciting. And yet, let's open up our settings. Well, that's interesting. Why does it think there's no definition found? I don't know. Obviously it is. So we have, so look what window used. We have a getter and setter pair. We can go ahead and mimic this ourselves. Now the fact that you have to write a new one of these for every new setting instead of just taking it as a parameter is not my favorite thing, but there's probably a good reason for it. And since we only encounter one option at a time, it's one of those, oh, maybe I'll deal with it later until eventually it gets overwhelming. Get serious business. And then function settings, set serious business. Okay, so we're actually going to do a lot of copy pasting here. All right, so serious business equals value. Ah, yes, need to pass that, excellent. Self-save, of course, we also need a callback. What? I did not mean that. All right, so if type serious business changed, and just calling it serious business, I'm already regretting it. Check for serious business, set check for serious business, check for serious business. If type check for serious business changed is a function, then go ahead and call it. All right. Grady asks, is this an add-on designer? This is the program Visual Studio Code using an extension made by community member Lunar Water. Let me go to the extensions. And that extension is the Lotro Api Extension, which understands an ever-increasing amount of the things that you can do with the Lotro API. So, for instance, if I needed to do a turbine.shell.writeLine, I can go ahead and call this up, and the extension knows that this writes a line of text to the chat window, specifically the standard channel. And it takes a text, which is a string. So we're experimenting today. Oftentimes I just use a basic text editor like Sublime Text, but I've been meaning to play around with this, both because Visual Studio Code is a free tool, this extension is free, and it's amazing looking. So I really wanted to get a chance to get my hands on it, because it contextually can tell me things like, hey, you've got stuff that's not great here. What's going on with that? In fact, if we come up to the constructor, we can go ahead and say this equals nil. And by defining it here, I bet if we come back here, it stops complaining. Because it's been defined ahead of time. And that's something I've been wanting for a long time. Just a moment. It's conceivable that eating 4 bagels before you go on to stream has some downsides. I'm not sure what they are, but it's conceivable. Okay, so if we come on back here, we can see, yes, it has stopped complaining that you're using a variable before declaring it. Sweet, that's something I've been wanting for a long time. And so seeing that here just happening naturally, delightful. Now, why isn't that happening elsewhere? Looks like load might be a place where that happens instead. All right. We'll do it there. Okay. Serious. Check for serious business. Check. Okay. The other question is, where else was, whoops. Okay, F11 maximizes things. Nice. So if I were to say find all references, we're going to see that in looking like this. Great. So as long as we have a settings object, we'll be able to play around with that. Where were we going to look at that? Maybe even in main. Do we have a settings object? Self.settings. Okay, so self.settings equals that thing. We can go ahead and say self.settings check for series business changed equals a function. And then series business effect, we can also save off self.check for serious business equals self.settings get check for serious business. Loving that autocomplete. Grady wishes the API allowed us to change game character animations. Well, that is well beyond what the Lotro API allows us to do. I'm not sure there's many game APIs out there that let you change such fundamental things of the game, but perhaps some newer games out there allow more flexibility. Okay, we have check for serious business. We're going to start with whatever is saved off in the file, and then self.check for serious business equals, yeah, same thing. We'll just get the updated value. It doesn't change that often. And that's really it, because if we're just using that value, self.check for serious business, in our function, oh, I've forgotten. Let's see. So many options. Refresh, I think it's called. Refresh effect display. So if self.check for serious business and that. And then we can also say if self check for serious business then. So two little Boolean checks. And the way we can kind of play around with this and make sure that's actually working is in the new thing, function, set serious business. Let's go ahead and say turbine.shell.writeLine setting serious business to, and then toString that is serious business, because otherwise spitting out a Boolean to this does not react well. Does not behave well. Oh, hey. So if I say hide UI when serious business is active, I may have gotten my checks backwards, or maybe nothing is working. Okay, we've definitely broken things. Excellent. Let's take a step back. So, first of all, are things set the right way? When in the options window, I forgot to actually use it. Excellent. Options window, set check for serious business. No. Sorry. Checkbox changed, self. Okay, what does that look like? Interesting. I don't know why that's a separate function instead of just doing that inline, but that's fine. Check for serious business changed. And then settings, set check for serious business, awesome. And we can say self dot serious business checkbox is checked. Okay, so hiding UI when serious business is the same as checking for serious business. Okay, we don't have a parity issue there. And then if we come back to where that was used, we want to make use of that functionality instead. And same thing with the set checked. We forgot to update get serious settings serious. I don't know. What is it called? All right, it's that, but the other. So it's a get function. Okay, get, check for serious business. Awesome. Okay, let's give that another try. We're going to go ahead and unload and reload, and now we have setting a serious business to true, setting a serious business to false. Oh man, I already love this. To false, to true. Okay, so we can see that that's working. So if we don't hide the UI, we can see we are not even encountering that. Lovely. Now, I have a feeling some unintentional code has crept in here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to our source control and take a look and see, okay, what's in here? There we go. In buff window, we still have that debug line. Excuse me. Coding hype. Indeed. Chat Lord. This is all about coding. So we've taken out the debug statement that was in here, and that's how we know set serious business was not being called from main.lua. So that check for serious business, we're short-circuiting this check here. We're not doing all of those string comparisons unless we are trying to. And we're not doing, we're not bothering to call that function either. Now we could call that function and check for it in there. Seems not necessary. We already have the value saved off in one location. No need to save it multiple times. Okay. So no changes above window. We have check for serious business. We're saving off that value, but we're updating it when it changes. And we're using that value to short circuit both of these things. Excellent. Let's go into to-do. And we're going to go ahead and say that we've done that thing. So make serious business feature optional. Awesome. So that's happening here in main. We also have our options window. We're not going to commit the debug options, but the checkbox for checking for serious business, we're going to stage that. And the, you know what, options window. Yeah, okay, we've got a new line now. There was no new line at the file. I think that now there is. That you get a little funny view when you're looking at it like that. So we'll take everything that's not the debug options. In settings, all right, looks like we got rid of some extra white space there. I'm fine with that. So look, we went ahead and initialized those functions, but specifically we added get check for serious business, set check, serious, 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 great. We'll take all of it. And in strings, we have a check for serious business. Perfect. Okay, so that gives us the ability to detect serious business, and in that case, not show the UI. Now that was interesting. I checked the box, but the UI didn't update until the effects list changed. Now, is that a problem? Like, if I'm sitting over here in serious business and I turn that on, it might be a little unintuitive if I turn it on and nothing changes. Well, what would that look like in the code? I'm going to minimize our fork program here. In fact, I'm going to minimize the browser as well. Okay, what would that look like? If we're in main and we know in the constructor of main, we have this callback, self check for serious business. Well, we know that buff window has this function, set visibility. So could we go ahead and use it? Self.buff window set visibility. What would that look like? Lord Zach asks, serious business, that's the debuff to prevent some actions like fireworks, right? Absolutely. And just for context, in case you're just joining us, as a minstrel, I absolutely adore the MinstrelBuff plugin. But something I noticed recently while I was doing the shrew stomping festival is that when the shrews attacked me, it would cause this UI to pop up and stay active because I had been in combat. And so my 9-second combat timer was counting down. And I decided I didn't really like that, and I wanted a way to turn that off optionally. And so if I go ahead and unload and reload, then in the options, all right, cool. We're all synced up now. If I go ahead and hide it while serious business is active, oh, that still didn't work. Did I save? I might not have saved. But the idea is that what I want is when serious business activates, like it does here, just running over towards that stage, I want the window to just go away. So we can see it should be active here, but because of serious business, it's not. That's the feature we were just doing. So the question is, why did this call not do anything? And I'm wondering if I saved. Or, oh no, okay. We never told buff window that we're caring about that or not. So does buff window need to know that we care about checking? So if we go to get window visible, this right here sorry, I'm debating with myself and I'm winning. Okay, so we have is serious business and self check for serious business equals false. And in main, we'll also have self.buff window. This is already spiraling, and I'm not sure I like it. Equals hang on. I don't like that much digging into other objects. Smart Zach says, I wanted to try making a plugin in Lotro, but lost interest in the game, so never did it. I totally get that. There's sort of that meme of, do I play the game or do I work on the plugin instead of playing the game? And I feel like I'm engaged enough with Lotro, and I spend enough time just sort of using plugins and sort of thinking about maybe tweak a thing, but not really worry about it, to the point where I felt like, okay, I can kind of split my time between doing some coding and then using the coding and seeing how that goes. And so, yeah, I would recommend if you enjoy playing Lotro, don't feel like you have to make a plugin. But if you can maintain that focus for more than the week or two it's going to take for more than a very simple plugin, yeah, if you can maintain that focus, awesome. But the key thing is to enjoy yourself, right? So if you enjoy yourself playing the game, but you don't enjoy, the coding side of it, then play the game. And if you enjoy the coding side of it, but you don't really enjoy playing the game, it's hard to justify doing the coding. But good on you if you're able to do it. Like the whole point, like why I do the plugins is so I can benefit from them, and maybe some other people too. But it's all about me, right? And so, yeah. Do I want a separate function? Like it seems like there's two separate things here. Are we in serious business, and are we caring that we're in serious business? And the main stops checking for it. But if you stop checking for it, then you stop. Yeah, I think we need that. So we're going to make a new function. Function buff window set check for serious business. Check for serious business. And serious business. Exactly. I am saying the term serious business all the time on this stream, because that's what we're doing. It's all about serious business. All right, self dot, I forget what I called it, serious, check for serious business, there we go, equals check for serious business. So we'll have a little helper function that allows other modules to call this, and that makes it a lot easier to change what this does later on. Okay, and then in main, we can go ahead and self.buff window. All right. Set check for serious business, and we can go ahead and just pass self.check for serious business. Great. But we can do the same thing in here. I want that set visibility though, I think. I want to yoink that. Because in here, I want to go ahead and just recall set visibility. Because self-check for serious business, I want to use that in the call for get visible? Get window visible? Yeah, there we go. So if self.check for serious business and, no, hang on, what's the logic here? Let's spell out the logic a sec. So window is available if so we have not serious business. Just mentally working my way through the logic. All right, if we're not checking for serious business, or we are and we're not serious business, there we go. So if I did that correctly, and that is an if. Oh, I didn't. Look at that. 414 in buff window Lua. There we go. And in fact, look, it was trying to tell me that. It was trying to say, you don't have that. Ideally, I'm going to go through and use this tool to clear up all of these issues, these outstanding issues, and then it'll be a lot more apparent when something like that has happened. Okay, so we have hide when the serious business is active. Great, we can see serious business came on, it went off. That's working great. So what happens if we're in here and we turn this off? Lovely. What happens if we're in here and we turn it on? So good. And then of course nothing happens out here when you toggle it. Oh, that's lovely. That's really lovely. Okay, so now you're going to optionally have to opt into this, but the result, and we can go ahead and go take a look at this. I'm going to return to Duillond now, where it's always serious business, but a different serious business. Actually, let me grab this one first. This is also highlighted in the wiki, so this is not like new or startling information, but I was surprised to learn that there are two different serious business implementations. I'll pull them both off as tooltips here. In chat, Lord Abracus, Lord Zach says, is this a plugin you made or are you just forking it? So this plugin dates back long before I was regularly playing Lord of the Rings Online. The MinstrelBuff plugin was originally made by Melida, and lots of thanks from me to them for doing it. But I have been making recent modifications to it, and at a certain point I may sort of re-release like a MinstrelBuff 2 kind of thing so that you can get it all in one go, instead of so you can get it all in one go instead of having to download the plugin and then my patch. So we'll see if they are at all active on the Lotro interface site or not. I sent them a message and we'll see what they say. But that was a thought I had was go ahead and just start a new one since they haven't actively released an update for it, and that'll make it easier to keep everything in one place. So things like this timer bar, which isn't showing up because I turned on the mode. Just a moment. All right, system, plugin manager, options, hide. Okay, so this timer that tells you when your ballads are going to expire was a pet feature of mine that I really wanted to incorporate, because knowing when your ballads are going to expire matters a lot, especially in landscape mode. If you're in a dungeon and you're going to have a 5-minute battle with a boss, it doesn't really matter. But knowing like, oh, I've got to get these anthems up because I'm about to lose my ballads, and oh, shoot, got it. That kind of thing. And so I was very interested in getting that combat timer going. And that's sort of where that started. And Lord Zach says, you're already testing it more than my colleagues test for work. That's very kind. Testing is important. I don't test as much as I should when it comes to things like plugins and localization and whatnot. I really would like, I have the desire to be better about like logging into French and German to make sure I didn't break anything. But unfortunately, it is non-trivial to switch client languages. And so when you make a change, you kind of sometimes are bad. And you just cross your fingers like, I hope this didn't break anyone who doesn't speak my language. But I can't just switch the client language. I have to completely exit to desktop, redo the launcher, switch languages, patch if I haven't patched, because the patches are only applied for the languages that you care about. So you have to switch to that language to get any recent patches, and then log in and character selection. So it's a whole thing. Oh, no wonder. It got dark in here after the sun went down. So it's a whole thing to test, right? And that's just switching from English to French, then doing it again if you switch from French to German. Lord Zach says, like if, for example, you add a command that doesn't exist in English but exists in German, that'd be a conflict. Yeah, or the Serious Business tooltip itself. Oh, I exited the other one. Oops. The Serious Business mode itself, the name of it is almost certainly going to be different for German and French, so I won't be able to detect that we're in Serious Business until I swap over and see what is the actual text there. So we can see this Serious Business says emotes and run speed effects have been disabled, whereas the one over by the Duillond Festival area only said festival emotes are disabled. So you can still run fast, you can still do regular emotes, you just can't do the dragon effect against someone who's up on stage. Okay, so the gardens are busy, of course. If you are uncomfortable running around in here, remember that you can, of course, just follow a shrew with the /follow command, which I have bound to one of my mouse buttons. And pick a shrew, follow it, get close, boot it, and repeat. Pick a shrew, follow it, boot it. Oh, make sure your boots are actually on your bar. There we go. So at about this stage, we're going to get the large shrew popping out. If you're too close to it, you'll get tossed back. You can also hear it about half a second before it comes out. So it's very important if you want to do well at this game, have your sound up. The explosion sounds in stereo, so you can kind of echolocate, as it were. You can kind of tell where it's coming up. All right, we got it. Now, it is possible for 2 or more players simultaneously to drive away the giant shrew if they are each hitting it at about the same time. But don't wait for other people, because as soon as the game registers that someone else has hit it, your ability to hit it goes away. And so you do want to make sure that if it's just you and one other person, maybe you're coordinating by voice or something. But in a group this large, you just sort of hope other people are also able to get it, and you take your best shot. All right, we've gotten all 10 of our shrews, and as we can see, even if we attack one of those shoes with a minor ballad here, it's immune to it, but it does pop us into combat, and we can see that our Minstrel buff is not popping up because it's serious business. And if we disable that, we're back, baby. Awesome. It's everything I wanted and more. Okay. All right, let's check out Big Shrew. Big Shrew? I keep hoping that I'll get a large shrew out of one of those boxes, and it keeps on not happening. All right, super busy here. I'm going to go ahead and depart here. Yes, it's very exciting to like make your plugin do something and then get to play with it and be like, oh, it's doing the thing. When Narada says it's got that new feature smell. Exactly. Okay. So we'll get over here, look down upon something below us, and come back in to our source control window. In this window, we can see we've got that check for serious business in the buff window, and we're using it, and we have a function to update it. And in the main window, we have both passed on the initial value and any new values. So, other than updating our to-do, it wasn't in the to-do. Excellent. Now it's just time to take a snapshot. All right, we're just going to take the changes of the serious business option into account. All right, Lord Zach asked, do you know if plugins can listen to keys? The answer is mostly not. Let me go ahead and take this snapshot here. So there are a few specific action keys that you can listen for. For instance, plugins can be told when you press the hide HUD key, typically F12, or the unlock Windows key. So, and the escape key. You can know about the escape key. But in general, plugins can't be triggered by pressing keystrokes. So you could do something tricky, I suppose, like detect Morse code spelled out with the F12 key or something. But beyond shenanigans like that, you can't activate a plugin based on keystrokes. But that lets plugins respond to the F12 key, for instance, to hide themselves. So when someone's taking a screenshot, you can take advantage of that. Let's see. So if I say that's visible even outside of combat, it can still know that I've pressed the F12 key. But I can't say, hey, whenever I press the 8 key, do this cool thing. That's right out. Okay. So we have done a really cool thing here, which is make my festival experience better. So let's go back and take a look at our to-do file and see what else can we do with this new toy of ours. Okay, so one thing I noticed, actually I noticed a couple of things. Looking at the Explorer view of Visual Studio Code, each file has a little number next to it if there are issues with the code. And I'd like to come in here and fix some of these because they're kind of distracting and they mean maybe there's something wrong. The settings encoder isn't actually used anymore, but if we come in here, there's two issues and you can see them over on the scroll bar here. We can see one's up here, one's down here. There might be a way to fast forward to them, as it were. Let's see. I'm not sure. But we can come in here and we can see there's a problem with encode table. Undefined global encode table. Well, that's referring to the fact that encode table is a member function of the class settings encoder. So that needs to be self encode table. And there's actually a similar problem that we can see down in decode table. This is meant to be a recursive call. Now, these aren't being used anymore. These were meant to solve the problem of writing out decimal numbers in a way that doesn't screw up the file when you switch between English and non-English. We have better ways of doing that nowadays. That's part of what this is0 format is all about. But these functions still exist in the code, and as long as they do exist in the code, maybe it makes sense to make it so the code is not wrong. That says the settings encoder file now is just modified but doesn't have any problems. Great. Let's commit that and keep going. All right. Fixed to function calls in settings encoder. In chat, Lord Zach says, decimals. We have an upcoming request from Germany to support numbers with commas instead of dot. That's going to be tough. Yeah, that's very important because as you may or may not know, numbers that have both a whole and fractional part use what's called a radix point, which in US and similar countries is denoted by a period or a decimal point, and in many European countries is denoted by a comma. So here in the Netherlands, we use a comma to separate the whole and fractional parts of a number, and a period to separate out the thousands columns. So if you have a million, that's 1 period 00 period 000 comma 00. And I'm just saying that aloud when I could be typing it into this lovely chat, lovely window we have. So in Europe, 1 million. That would be 10000 comma 00. In fact, let's swap that up. And in the US, that would be in US as an example, not exclusively. That would be 1 comma 000 comma 0.00. Now, internally, a lot of systems do not keep track of things like this. This is a purely display thing. The redhead says, it's good for you to say out loud because I may not be able to see your screen well. That's fair. The text is kind of small. Ideally, this is just a display issue. Internally, the number is hopefully, if you're talking about money, not even stored as a decimal. Like ideally, this is stored as 1000000. Ideally stored as, and there's an implicit three fractional spots, right? 3 decimal places. So you can kind of mentally capture it there. And that way you can add and subtract numbers and even handle a fractional cent. You could have arbitrarily many things, but you don't want to use a float data type if you can get away with it because there's all sorts of problems there. There are many types in a lot of modern programming systems that aren't quite as bad as like float and double in your traditional brace languages. Anyway, yes, localizing can be really tough, but ideally you can make use of modern programming systems locale features and just say, format this according to the local locale, and it'll just do the thing that they have requested through their control panel. Like if I come in here to locale, well, that was not what I was hoping to see. Let's see, regional. Yeah, region settings. So in Windows, it's a region setting, and you can come in and set things like, do I use a comma? Do I use a decimal point? What am I using? Money type is 4 decimals, and the whole value is stored in 8 bytes. Databases. Ugh. I mean, they're necessary, but ugh. All right, let me go ahead and finish taking this snapshot. All right, so that was the thing I called out in my to-do file, I think. There we go. Great. Let's look at some of these other things that are being called out here and see if there's any of them that we can do something about. So table.get, and I was having a discussion with some people before the stream, and it seems like that has been deprecated in favor of the pound operator, or octothorpe, as I like to call it. But let's see what happens. I guess the real question is, how do we tell if it's working? Hide windows. When does hide window get called? Find all references. Okay, so if we do the off operation, we can do a hide window. Okay, that's great. That's testable. So let's go ahead and see, does the pound operator work correctly in this context? All right, so we unload, we reload, no syntax errors. So if we do an /mb, we get the list /mb off. /mb on. Okay. /mb off. /mb on. Well, it seems to be working. But you know, let's go ahead and do some debug output. So turbine.shell.writeline. And we have two things. We want table.getIn of this. And then we can just copy that. And we want the same thing, but we actually want the octothorpe operator. Okay, so we've got that set up. Unload, reload, MB off. Okay, great. I missed the octothorpe operator, so that failed when it attempted to actually run the thing. Okay, and we can see in the output here that both getIn and the pound operator both returned 1, so at least they're the same in that instance. It seems like in Lua 5.1, which is what's embedded, or a version of that is embedded in Lord of the Rings Online, it seems like the hashtag operator is preferred, but it sounds like they should act in the same manner. So that's cool. That got rid of a couple of the issues in this file. What else do we have? We have ISA. That is a valid thing. That's going to require an update of the extension, so I'm not too worried about that. But what else do we have? We have two things here. Where's the other one? Show me your secrets. Oh, here we go. All right, we have, this is a function called Debug Table, so it's obviously not going to be used for real stuff, I hope. And we have table.sort, sort a table and compare items. But what is compare items? Was that a helper function? I don't know, but certainly it seems like it's not in operation yet. Yeah, that's... So, I'm not a big fan of shipping debug code like this. I mean, it's one of those you do you kind of things, right? But I'm going to say, for the sake of clarity, should that just be commented out? Maybe? I'll think about that. Oh, in chat, Lord Zach says, oh, it's like instance of. Yeah, this is actually defined in the turbine files. Let me go ahead and pop open a Sublime Text browser. And then here, if we go into the Lord of the Rings Online, there's optional turbine files you can download. And one of them, class.lua, defines a function is_a, and that's going to be attached to everything. So it goes ahead and inserts that into the table for all the classes, and that's a simple way to test for, is this a thing, right? And MinstrelBuffs uses that in one specific place to say, is the mount a combat mount? To tell us, are we on a war steed? Now, it might be that there's a way to do that without invoking that specific function. I'm not worried about it. It works, right? But that's what's going on there. Okay, so I'll have to think about whether I want to just comment out or remove completely that debug functionality. But in the meantime, what do we have? Self. Turbine.shell command. Apparently we're trying to pass self, but it looks like that's not a valid thing. All right, I'm game. Turbine, shell command. I wonder if there's any samples here. Well, turbine.shell command. Sure, all right. I'll have to take Lunar Water's word for it. Let's go ahead and get rid of that and see if the shell commands still work. MB off /MB on. All right, they still work. Awesome. And the final one, I say final one, there's two here. In order says, facepalm, don't take my word. Well, you know, it's funny because the API documentation, there's areas where it's very good and there's areas where it's a little light, and it definitely seems a little light on that specific class. The constructor is not even mentioned in that version. So if I come into Turbine and have shell command, yeah. Sorry, I did get muted. Yeah, so interesting. So this one is interesting because we're calling the turbine shell command parent constructor. And maybe that's a reasonable thing to do by passing self to the parent constructor. That's an interesting edge case because we're not just instantiating a shell command. We're specifically invoking a parent function in a constructor. And for that, I'm not sure about. Let's go back to buff window, which is probably also. And if we come in here, we do a turbine UI window constructor self. All right. But in that case, do we have a constructor? So maybe that should be constructor. Okay, that's the problem. There's your problem. So /mb off, /mb on. Okay, so those things work. Okay, so the wrong error was called out in this case, and I don't know if there's a special edge case to be had, but if you're doing the constructor of a class deriving from another class, you want to make sure to hit that base constructor pretty early on in your constructor. So that was a problem, I think. Let's see, Lua window constructor. Yeah, that's what they wanted to do. Now in this case, obviously it didn't seem to affect functionality too much, but it's good to get it right. Okay, so what do we have in the option window that is, oh yeah, another getIn. All right. Well, I'm certainly game to try this out. So we can see we go from standard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different themes. So if I unload that and reload that, I would hope to see the same. Cool. I need to stop pressing escape. Okay. Awesome. And then finally, the buff window.lua. What's going on in here? Oh, this was an interesting one. I think this is another extension issue. The extension is an ever-growing project from Lunar Water. Thank you so much for what it is so far. But it seems like the extension doesn't necessarily know about what a minstrel stance is, and so that is confusing it. The get stance may also be a part of that. And then we have a couple of table.getends, so we can fix that. Awesome. So that brings us down to, there are a couple, questionable things that are probably extension related, not code related. So this is one of those cases where you want to take the tool's input, but you don't want to just run on blind faith. You want to make sure you carefully evaluate what it says. Okay, so we have gone through each of the potential issues that the plugin knows about, and we've resolved those. So let's go back to what we've changed and see how much of it we want to commit and how much of it was just an interesting exercise. Okay, so replaced table.getN with hashtag. And I'm going to commit each of those separately, just as one thing. So we're going to take that and here. Oh, thank you. So table getN, table getN, table getN. That's what all of those were. And more importantly, none of these are. Okay. We're also going to go ahead and discard this white space change. Remove from it. Yeah, I'm going to discard it. It's fine. I don't care that much about it. Okay. Fixed call to base class constructor. Awesome. That feels like a good thing to have fixed. even though it wasn't a big deal in this case. All right, looks like a random new line crept in. I'm just going to get rid of that. And then finally, we have that Debug Table class. Now, I'm a big fan of having debug functionality available. Sometimes I even ship the stuff. But this function here, this debug, let's see. Yeah, we can see a large portion of this file is now debug functionality. I would really rather see this in a debug functions.lua. And yeah, right? Like, and maybe it gets shipped, maybe it doesn't, kind of thing. But just having it sitting here in the middle of main, and it's not even valid because the thing that it wants to use, compare items, doesn't exist, right? Like if I search for compare items, this is the only reference to it. That's never going to work. It has probably sat in this release plugin for the last decade. Maybe not quite that long, but for years and years and years and years, it came in at some point. Possibly other code that it was relying on didn't or has been deleted. Like I look at that and I'm like, no, this should not be here. With the benefits of source control, we can delete it and then always resurrect it later if we want to. Because this is someone else's sandbox, I'm hesitant to fix all the things, right? I just look at this and I'm like, so I think I like commenting it out. It's not going to take memory space. It'll still take that time for Lotro to load it in and skip past it, but it's not going to occupy memory space. It's not going to be a function that can be called and then crash or anything. So I think that's a good compromise for my purposes. So I'll go ahead and say yes, commented out debug function. ... for now. And we'll take that. We'll take that as a win. And yes, it has the benefit of squelching a warning. Zach says, fix all the warnings. Yeah, I'm a fan of fixing all the warnings until it takes a lot of effort. And then I'm like, oh, but it's hard. Okay. Awesome. Now, there were one or two items. Do I have the time for them? I really was interested in getting into a couple of these. Okay. Just a little thing here. In the MinstrelBuff main show window, in this, something I just noticed, we do a for I equals 1 to skill count, and then we do if it's a valid Dakota skill, and then we check is it a valid cry skill, and is it a valid minstrel skill, and that just makes me cry a little inside. I would really like that to be else if. And again, here as well, I would like that to be else if. We don't need to check all three of them. If the first one is good, stop. If the second one is good, stop. Something like that. So that's a place where I don't know that this is getting called a lot. It's show window. It's happening once, and yeah, just it's just a little nicety thing. So I just wanted to come in and make that fix. All right. Now there's another big one actually I do want to get into here. All right, use if else if and instead of if and if and. Oh, interesting question. Lord Zach in chat says, can something be multiples? Let's come back here. A valid coda skill, a valid cry skill, a valid major valid skill. Well, for something to be a valid coda skill, as an example, we're going to be looking at the valid coda skill names versus valid cry skill names versus valid major skill names. Oops. Let's not make that even smaller than it already is. So let's back up a moment. And take a look at that. So is valid coda skill. We have things like, I'm in the French section. How did that happen? We have things like coda of the alias, improved coda of residence, coda. They all have coda in them, right? Valid cries. They all have cry in there, except for Song of Unity. These are distinctly non-overlapping skill names. But that's an excellent question, and something I hadn't thought of. Like a reason to do if is if your thing can be multiple things. I'm very used to in Minstrel land. An anthem that you are either an anthem or you are not. There's no you're an anthem and you're a ballad kind of thing. But it's absolutely true that some you maybe could have something that's both a cry and a call, for instance. Fortunately, we're not worrying about that right now. But that's an interesting point. I saw that and I was concerned about it. But now that you say that, is this a function that gets called very often? Let's see. Go to references. Show window. Let's just say, when does this happen? In fact, almost never. This is maybe not a great optimization because that thing happens like once. So, good point. I'm not going to risk it. Maybe it's there intentionally. I don't like it, but I'm willing to concede that for something that doesn't happen in the middle of a loop or something. All right. Localization, on the other hand, Lord Zach says Minstrel isn't a class I've played much. It's my main class, and so I know lots of little things about it, but I fully admit that sometimes I'll just miss things or learn things. Localization's an interesting one. I feel like it. Let me see. Oh, settings. There we go. Localization in here. Let's see. Localization. Where is it? Get effect localization names. The way this works is really interesting. It asks turbine.shell, is this a command? And then it gives a specifically German command. These are things like, slash cheer. Well, not slash cheer, but slash commands that you can use in chat. Slash Hilfe in German, or slash Aida in French, or otherwise it's English. It's a very interesting way of detecting what your language is. And it strikes me as a very old way of doing this, right? Like the modern way of saying what language am I is to call turbine.engine.getLanguage, and it's going to be either English or German or French, and good, run with it. Okay, apparently Aida is slash help in French. Nice. So, I used a slash help command, and it spit a bunch of stuff into chat. Nice. Right, Lunar Water says they didn't have get language. Absolutely. So this strikes me as an old-fashioned way to say what language are we on. That being said, it works great, obviously. But the problem for me is that get effect localization names is getting called a lot. And so if we come in here to main, every time you call get localization, you're really calling get effect localization name, which is really going and saying, is this a valid command? Yeah, as Lord Zach has jumped ahead in the chat to say, yeah, we should cache that. We should save it off after fetching it once. Because what's happening is get localization is getting called. Get localization is getting called from is valid ballad effect, is valid anthem effect, and it's getting called multiple times. So if it's not French, then we call it again, recheck, re-get whether that command was German, French, or English, and then compare it against German. And so each time we check is valid anthem, is valid coda, is valid whatever, we're doing this check against is this a valid check command. Okay, well, you might say that might not be too bad, except we come back in here and we're doing this in the middle of the function. Let's see, where is it? Let's see, is valid I'm sorry, is valid anthem effect. There we go. So we're doing this in the middle of refresh effect display, which is called every time you have an effect added, removed, or changed on your effect bar. So you know how you're in combat, you get a debuff, you get a buff, you get a heal, you get whatever. Every time that changes, we reprocess all of the effects. And within that, we're calling things like is valid anthem effect. And within that, we're calling get localization twice if you're running out in English. And within that, we're calling get effect localization names. And within that, we're saying is Hilta a valid command, is Ida a valid command. So, I mean, your happy path is if you're on German, and then you're doing all this extra work, but only a little bit. But in English, multiple times through that loop, we're calling this, and ideally somewhere there's an optimization where the machine just like, yeah, no, this is what's happening. But what I would very much like to do is not that. So I think this will be where either the last thing I do tonight or the first thing I do next time. But I don't want to run without this for the next week. So let me see what I can do about that real fast. Let's see. Did I have a note about this? Okay. So I had some notes about things I wanted to do. So we have a function called get effect of localization names. And what I would like to do is make a new function, settings detect localization. It's going to look really similar to this. But the idea is to cache this off. Lord Doc says, Lotro must have more than these 3 languages. So technically, yes. The full enumeration is English, English Great Britain, French, German, invalid, and Russian. But the official Lotro clients right now are English, French, and German. So if you're looking at the launcher and you click the little EN button here in the upper right, you can switch between English, German, and French. So ideally, you're only going to see those returned. I've heard tell that there are some unofficial Russian clients slash servers involved, maybe just clients. And so you could definitely see how you would want a plugin to be able to support Russian. But in this case, English, French, and German are the ones we specifically are caring about. So instead of returning, I had thoughts on this. Oh, cool. Yes. Just a moment. Okay. So I had thoughts about saving that off as like self.localization. I like it. Let's follow past me's plan for the future. So self.localization equals DE. Now, I would, again, if I had a magic wand, could wave it and just everything was different, I might go ahead and use the more modern, way of detecting the language, but that's a lot bigger of a change than just this. So, in our constructor, our settings constructor, we can go ahead and self detect localization, do that once, and now we know this is, now we know detect localization is going to be called. Now we can just go ahead and return self.localization instead of all this. So it's a start. Should we replace the current code for that official fetch from the other file? I'm a fan of evolution, not revolution for a lot of things, right? Like I don't want to break this. I use it every day. So this is the starting point. So we saved off the result. Awesome. Return that result. We added the call. So at least we're doing it once. Now I don't know how Lua is optimized internally. I have hopes that the fact that this is a function call to another function call is not the least efficient thing ever. But at the very least, now we're not bothering to do that recheck. We're only doing it once. Ideally, I would go ahead and follow up with that, though, for those places that use get localization. Oops. Maybe don't call it twice. Maybe only call it once in a function. But my long-term plan would be to have a structure like this, where strings are stored side by side, and then you just use a get function that gets the current version, or the English one if the current version's not available. And then you don't have to do all of the nonsense that's going on here. You don't have to call the get language function multiple times. You only need to save it off once, because it doesn't change. It cannot change without exiting the program. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and commit that, and we're going to call that a night. All right, so we have detect localization. We're going to change get effect localization to detect. Self equals like equals, and then, oh, I guess I should test it. Okay, cool. Okay, so seems to still work pretty well. Okay, cache the localization check. That's pretty much it. Oh, and apparently there was a final thing here. Okay. Now, there was actually a thing that I'll pick up next time, I think. Actually, two things I had noted here. For next time. Excellent. Okay. So, one thing I want to do is what we do for the Soliloquy Spirit tracker to figure out if it should be used is to monitor when your stance changes. That doesn't seem to be working, at least in French, possibly also not in German as well. So there's probably a string that's not being checked correctly there. Also, I think it's possible that there's a skill is trained callback that we could register for. I'm not sure how that works, and so maybe just fixing the current system is better than delving into that. But that's on my to-do list. So I think I want to sort that out next time. Okay, so cache the localization check. Excellent. So one thing I didn't really do was take these things that we've done and put them into the README file. README file is telling people what we've done. Now, not a lot here. Version 1.9.1.6 change. Added missing bindar patch.lua file. That was an emergency, whoopsie, this is broken, release. So what did we do that is visible to the user beyond just optimizations and bug fixes? Like splitting things into long lines, that's not very helpful. So, reacting to serious business. That's the big thing. Added option to hide UI during serious business. Serious business. Fixed a couple of things, fixed a thing, fixed a thing, fixed a thing, fixed a thing. The rest of this can't be seen by a user, and so doesn't belong in the README file, as far as I'm concerned. Awesome. Well, I think we're going to leave it there. Let me just get some of that out of the way. Okay. So, yes, let's get down to business. So, that was a lot to do. It is the last Tuesday of the month, so be sure to check out Shoreless Skies' Beneath Your Feet. It's at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and I don't know what their destination is today, but it's usually pretty exciting. So do check that out. I wonder if I do a, let's see, exclamation Tuesday. Aha, there it is. Shoreless Skies, that's what it is. Cool. So that is happening later today. It's the only time of the month that they are on. And I think that's all we're going to cover today. So I'm going to grab a glass of or a drink of water. So if you have any last minute comments, questions, or concerns, toss them into chat. And otherwise, we will see it next time. Oh, I see that happen to Bub Bub. All right, I'm not seeing anything coming racing into chat. Special thanks to Lunar Water for this truly excellent excellent extension onto the Visual Studio Code. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Let me just pop it back up here. So once again, if you are looking for it, it is called Lotro Api. And I'm going to stick a link here in chat. Visual Studio Code is free. You can download it from something. I put a link in earlier. And this extension is also free, provided out of the kindness of their heart by Lunar Water. It continues to be improved and extended upon. I don't know if there's an automatic update feature, but I am excited to see more updates come along. You can pop into my Discord and see chatter about it. You can see that in the D tracker about. Let's see, where did I put that? Let's see, documents, plugging along. Q plugins, D tracker. So if you have a mind to use something like Discord, you can use this Discord link here to pop into the Q Plugins Discord server and chat about plugin development. Otherwise, just message on one of the many platforms that I'm available on. Awesome. Anyway, I do want to thank Lunar Water again for Visual Studio Code's Lotro API plugin. It's neat. I'm enjoying it. Okay. Whoops. Apparently I'm just clicking random things. Fun. All right. Well, with that, I think that's all we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Lotro plugins. I do hope to see you again next week. And until then, keep plugging along. All right. Bye-bye now.